Huh. So my frames just died. I can't even see what I'm looking at. That's crazy. Oh my goodness, the delay. Anyway. Ugh. That sign does look pretty nice, man. Pretty nice. I guess this is official. Even though it's not official. For it to be official, I need a sign that says The Living Proof Podcast. That's what I need. That would be an official sign. Anyway. I suppose that would be an official sign, but I'm not really official. Anyway, welcome back to the Living Proof Podcast. Good to see all of you guys, even though I'm not really literally seeing you. Hope you all had a wonderful Christmas break. I know I did. It was a nice, well-needed rest from school, from all the academics, from the mental stress, from the pressure of life. Spent a lot of time playing Rocket League. That was kind of really not needed, but that's okay. And I also spent time trying to study for classes that are coming up, but we'll see how that goes. I thought I was pretty productive, but then again, there's always more to do. There's always more you can do, and there's always more you can do for God. And in light of the new year, I think something that we can do for God is stick to our goals, stick to our little resolutions, and that's going to be the topic of today. New Year's and resolutions, but New Year, same God. That's pretty much what the goal of today's episode is about. How even though it's a new year, even though there are new experiences coming around, whether you have New Year's resolutions or not, God is still the same today, yesterday, and forever, and He will remain the same even as the years change and your goals and values change. And to start off, I want to start with John chapter 5, verse 17 through 19. But Jesus answered them, "My Father has been working until now, and I have been working." Therefore the Jews sought all the more to kill Him, because He not only broke the Sabbath, but also said that God was His Father, making Himself equal with God. Then Jesus answered and said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of Himself but what He sees the Father do. For whatever He does, the Son also does in like manner." Mainly want to touch on the first part of those verses, the verse 17. My Father has been working until now, and I have been working. So just because New Year started, I know it's a new year. Everyone's like, new year, new me, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to change. I'm going to become a better person. That's all fine and dandy. You can continue to do that. But I don't want anyone to get the misconstrued idea that just because it's a new year, that means all of a sudden, miraculously, God's going to start working. He's already been working in your life. Like all the change you've been seeing, all the maturity, all the development, all the growth, that has been a result of God working in your heart and in your life, whether you want to admit that or whether you realize that or not. It would be a crime, or it would be wrong to say that God just randomly one day, January 1st, 2025, He's like, okay, Landon, I'm going to take him, start working on him right now. All the years before, I forgot that was still on. Oops. All the years before, all the years up until now, doesn't even matter. The 19 years he had before this, irrelevant, because I'm going to start working right now. No, that's not how that works. Now, when you become a new creation in Christ, yeah, all the stuff that happened before, that's your old life, and now you're living a new life for God. That is different in that sense. But God Himself, He's been working. He's not going to just randomly start one day and saying, you're a project I'm not going to take out of the background and into the foreground. You're always in the foreground of God's mind. You're always being worked on in a sense. And I think I had to realize that over break. A lot of the time, whenever I go back home, I get this sinking feeling that when I go back to my room and lay in my bed and just stare at the ceiling, that I feel as though I'm back in high school. I'm back in my 2020, 2021, 2022 phase where I just wasn't being a faithful Christian to God. I wasn't being a faithful servant at all. I would say backsliding. I wasn't even really into my faith. I was more into the world, and it was just felt like a bad time for me spiritually and emotionally and mentally. And so that time, I always go back, and it reminds me of the time where I struggled so much with my own self-worth and my value and blah, blah, blah. So whenever I go back home, it doesn't really feel like a break whenever I'm sitting in that room. But it's still nice to see family and stuff like that. But if I were to focus on that the entire time, then I would neglect all the work that God has been doing in my life, and I would neglect all the work he's going to continue to do, right? Saying that I'm the same person as the guy 2, 3, 4 years ago, that's not necessarily true, right? There's so much change that has happened from 2022, 2023 until now. And the same is true with yourself. If you have resolutions, if you feel like you haven't been doing well in life, take a look at maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Take a look at 4 years prior. Take a look at yourself during COVID and look at yourself now and compare and contrast the 2 points in time. I guarantee you'll find some type of difference, some type of change, whether it's a positive change, one you'd like to see, or a negative change, one you may not be so happy with. And that sometimes happens, right? We sometimes make changes in our life that we don't exactly agree with. We sometimes do actions that go against our will, which Romans 7 completely talks about, how we want to do certain things, but we do what we don't want. And when we do what we don't want, we entertain the values of the flesh. But that's a topic for another day. Basically, what I'm saying is that if you always focus on what you didn't accomplish in the past and what you haven't accomplished in the past, you'll never see what God's preparing you for the future. An example of that being, I guess, last semester for me. I was stuck. I forget who. I was reading something and it was talking about how you can't be stuck in the past. It was something very recent and I cannot remember for the life of me. I can't remember what it was. Oh, wait. No, it was this university welcome back thing that I was at on Monday. And Austin was saying that we need to focus on the future. We can't be stuck in the past, and how reminiscing about how good the past days were, how good it was to be in 2022 or 2023. I wish I could go back to that time. Because then you're not living in the present, right? God wants us to live in the present. And I think if we're always focusing on the past and how good life was then, we can't fully embrace the present. Because we're always comparing the present to the past. We're always comparing ourself of now to ourself of the past. And that is something that is very detrimental, not only to your spiritual health, but to your mental health as well, to your physical health, because you'll just want to give up. You won't be motivated to do anything because, compared to before, I'm nothing, so I might as well not even try. That's not the mindset God wants for us. God wants us to keep trying because he's been working, and he'll continue to work in our lives. And so that's something I wanted to touch on, but that was just based on the starting verse. There's a couple of more points that I have. Making a resolution isn't going to magically solve your problems. We all know the classic trope of getting a gym membership on January 1st and saying, I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to work out. I'm going to perfect my body and become this Giga Chad, swole, buff man and woman. But after a month or so, after a couple weeks, you really start feeling that, maybe I shouldn't go to the gym today. Maybe I'll push it off just a little bit longer. And then you start to take a break for one day. And then that one day turns into 2. And then you take a break for a week. And then you never go back. So it's like making a resolution, obviously, alone isn't going to magically change your life. John 15, 1-8 says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already, you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you, unless you abide in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. And the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. And a point I really want to touch on is verse 5, talking about, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. A friend of mine on Discord the other day was mentioning stuff about faith and how we try on our own, but God says apart from him, we can do nothing, right? And so you can make a resolution all you want. You can make a goal. You can make a dream aspiration. You can have values in life that you want to pursue. I could want to be the best engineer ever. I could want to be the most prodigious. What's the word? Prodigious? Prodigious? I don't even know how to pronounce that word. That's so embarrassing. Anyway, I could be the most talented and exceptional piano player the world has ever seen, right? Or I could want to be, I should say. I could want to be the most talented player the world has ever seen. But if I don't take actions towards that, it's not going to change anyway. And even if I do take actions toward that, if I don't have God with me, it's going to amount to nothing, right? Because apart from God, we literally can do nothing. And even if you accomplish that, which is another point I want to make, even if you accomplish your dream and become famous or whatever, have you truly really accomplished anything? If you think about it in the perspective of a spiritual mindset, have you truly accomplished anything? Because in this world, everything amounts to nothing. Jeremiah 10:29, I know, Lord, that our lives are not our own. We are not able to plan our own course. And 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you are bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. So even if we accomplish something in this life, our life already is owed to God. God has given us this life to use to glorify Him. So anything we accomplish, we didn't really do it on our own. It was God giving us that strength, God giving us that ability. Everything we have is from God. We are not our own. We are not able to plan our own course. We cannot direct our own steps. God does that for us. Proverbs 16:9, which I'll get to later. God does that for us. So we can't create our own, reality. We can't really. Now we can choose what we want to do with God's talents that He's given us, with our abilities, with our intellect, with our prowess when it comes to, music or sports or even psychology. Talking could be your very best skill. And if you don't use that in a way that's glorifying of God, it doesn't really amount to anything, right? You're not really giving God that glory. So you're taking what He's given you, perverting it, using it for something that He didn't really intend. So ultimately, it's not really doing anything. Let's say you're given a piece of paper, right? And they want you to fold, the person that gave you the paper intends for you to use that paper to fold it into a paper airplane, right? And so you fold it, you start folding, you're getting into a paper airplane, all of a sudden you're like, it'd be really cool if I fold it into a paper airplane, but then just immediately crumple it up afterwards and throw it away. And you still made the paper airplane, right? And the goal was to make a paper airplane, but you did it for your own purpose of making a paper airplane to throw it away and then do something else with it. I don't know. But you're not doing it for the purpose that it was intended, right? If I were to make a paper airplane and give it back to the teacher, then the teacher would be like, okay, good paper airplane, you get an A. And, you get some satisfaction out of that. But if you were to make a paper airplane, take that paper, take it home and do whatever you want with it, that's not what God intended the paper for. That's not what the teacher intended the paper for. And it's not what God intended for you, right? He gave us this life. He gave us this path that we're walking down in order to glorify Him. That was the intent. That was the goal. And that's what He hopes all of us achieve by desiring Him and desiring a relationship with Him. But if you're not going down that path, if you're not pursuing that goal, even if you accomplish the creation of that paper airplane, it's not going to be as effective as it would have been giving it to the teacher and getting an A, because now you're going to fail the class because you took the paper home. I don't know why you did that. Why'd you do that? Anyway, I'm just saying, if you're not intending to use your abilities for their directed purpose, it's going to be a lot harder to achieve the goals that you want. And even if you achieve those goals that you want, there have been countless stories of people that have achieved all the wealth, all the fame, all the worldly prowess, and they still don't feel satisfaction because they're not doing it for the right reason. The love of God has to be there first. To make a resolution, you have to have a foundation for something. You have to have a goal that you want to reach. And say you accomplish that goal, right? You create, say I want to get buff in 30 days. I want to have a six-pack. And you start doing sit-ups every day. I'm going to get the six-pack. I'm going to really grind it out and get the six-pack. 30 days. You follow this 30-day regimen. But at day 16 or 17, you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I'm not seeing any abs. I'm not seeing any change in my body. I'm not seeing any development. And you're wondering, do I really trust what this process is? Do I trust the process? Do I trust what's going on with my body right now? And that's a lot of reason why people give up some of their resolutions, if not all of them. They don't see what they want to see. They don't feel the results. All they feel is the work. And when they see no results and only feel work, it's much more tempting to give up than it is to keep going. And that's sometimes how it feels with God. When God's working in our life, we don't see the results right away. We're just committed to work. All we have to do is work and glorify Him, and He will produce with us. He will produce unto us our rewards. But I feel like it's much easier to do that with God than you do with resolutions, because a resolution, you build it on that foundation, that goal, it may change. Your goal may change. You may not want a six pack anymore. All of a sudden, your resolution becomes void and you just immediately switch up. Now, God's the same. God's not going to change. He's not going to switch up. He's not going to direct your path somewhere else. He's going to take you exactly to where you need to be. And that is all he does for our entire lives. He will always take us where we need to be. He will always give us what we need as long as we love and desire him. And that should be the foundation of any resolution that you have. The foundation on the Lord doesn't change. Foundation of the Lord is like a house built on solid rock. It does not move. It does not change. When the storms and waves rise, that house will remain standing. If you build all your goals and dreams and aspirations on a resolution that is based on worldly perspectives, then you, of course, are going to fall. Resolutions are like inherently meant to be failed, honestly, because you perceive yourself that a new year, all of a sudden you're going to have motivation and drive and power to do the same thing you couldn't have done 19 years ago or 19 years prior. Say you're 40 years old and you wanted to do something at 21 and now you're 40. You're still trying to do that something. Or you meant to do it at 19 or 21. You forgot about it. And then all of a sudden at 40 you remembered it, like, okay, new year, I'm going to do this one thing. What makes you think that since you forgot about it when you were 21, you're going to do it now at 40? That's not how that works. Resolutions are made, I feel like when you make them, there is such a high susceptibility to failure. And that's not a bad thing. The failure teaches lessons. That's a great thing that if you don't fail in life, I have some questions for you, because how do you get anything done, honestly? But if you fail on that resolution, you'll then realize, okay, something needs to change. And it most likely is the motivation of your resolution. If you're doing it based on simple motivation, it's going to fail. But if you're doing it based on foundational knowledge of who God is and why he's giving you this life, why he's giving you this purpose, why he's giving you this body, why he's giving you these abilities, then all of a sudden it's not going to seem so out of reach, the goal we're trying to achieve. It's not going to seem so far away. We're not going to not see results for 50 million years and all of a sudden get a little doubtful because, I don't know if this is going to work. It's always going to work because God always delivers on his promises. He's always the same, and that's something you can always rely on. So that's what you should build your goals on. But, I wanted to add a note that 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 is low-key about sexual immorality. So I know that's not like technically about, resolutions and all that, but I think the mindset can still be applied to honoring your bodies, because honoring your body is like honoring the temple of God, right? God's given us our bodies. It's meant to be a temple, meant to be a temple where we worship him and house the spirit and glorify God, right? So if we're not taking care of that body, whether it be sexual immorality or, keeping up with resolutions, keeping up with your mindset, keeping up with your physicality, keeping up with your spirituality, then you're not going to be honoring the temple in either way. Whether you're committing a sin of lust or committing the sin of pride or committing the sin of sloth or any of these other sins, you're committing a sin and defiling the temple of the Lord, right? And so anything you say or do is going to be seen as defiling the body in a sense. And so I want another thing, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I clearly don't have an abundance of vocabulary because I can't stutter. I can't not stutter. Oh my goodness. The body is intertwined with itself. One part cannot be in discourse with another. So if our minds are trying to do one thing and our spirits are taking us away from the one thing, because we're trying to pursue this great, wonderful resolution that we connived on our own, but God has a different plan for us. Obviously, the two are going to be they're not going to be, in concordance with another. One's going to want to go this way, one's going to want to go that way, and they're not going to line up with each other. The spirit's going to want you to go right, your flesh is going to want you to go left. At some point, something's going to have to give. And if you're wanting to go with your flesh, you're going to go down that path, and you're not going to honor the Lord. You're not going to use your life the way you should. And that resolution, you're going to go down that path. Resolution may not go through. It may. You may accomplish your goals. But even then, you're going to realize that it's not all that. That is not the end of the rainbow in a sense. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow isn't what you want. I guess I should say that much. But what good is it to achieve worldly fame and fortune if not for the glory of God? I think that's a powerful question that I wrote down and something that I want all of us to think about every day. Because honestly, if you had the biggest platform on the planet, you had Let's use Mr. Beast for example. 483 million subscribers or 473 million subscribers. If you had 473 million people that knew what you were up to, watched you on a daily basis, saw all your content, and knew exactly what you would say because you posted somewhere. Imagine how much more that fame would be worth something if you use it to glorify God, right? Imagine how much more it would benefit not only you, but the people around you, the people with you, the people next to you, and the people that don't even know you. Because all of a sudden, you're promoting the Lord of Lords, the King on high, and everyone's seeing it, everyone's watching it, everyone's tuning in, everyone's like, wow, what is this dude talking about? I kind of want to get involved. So if you're not using your fame and glory to bring, or fame and fortune to bring God glory, it's kind of just like a waste. I'm not saying that money is a waste. It is. If we're being honest, it really is. You don't need it. If you really need money, then I can't say that though. Some people need money because of their financial situation. I'm not going to say that you don't need money to live. You need money to live. That is very true. But do you need money to be a faithful servant of God? No, that's what I'm trying to get across. You don't need money to be a good servant to the Lord. But if you get all that money, if you get all that fame, if you get all that power in the world, say you become the president, anyway, say you become the president and you have the opportunity to attribute your success to one thing. How much more powerful would it be to attribute it to the Lord than to attribute it to your own hard work and dedication? People are going to then look up to you instead of looking up to God. And all of a sudden the glory goes away from him and then it goes towards you. And if I were any person that had a resolution, had a goal, accomplished it, and someone asked me how I did it, I would definitely want to know, I would want the person to know that God is the one that got me through it. If you say, yeah, did it on my own strength, 100% me, blood, sweat, and tears, I put in that elbow grease and I got that work done. That's cool, I guess, but it's not the truth, right? We can't do anything on our own. Apart from God, we can do nothing. So to say you could accomplish anything on your own is, quite frankly, a lie. And it's deceiving the next person to believe that they don't need God. They can do everything on their own. They don't need that firm foundation, which is not the truth. So anyway, that's that point. Making a resolution is point. It's powerful. It is beneficial. But without the foundation to carry on that resolution, it's kind of meaningless. Another thing, it's important to create God. Oh, whoa. I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. I was about to say it's important to create gods. No, it is not. We are not supposed to create gods. Oh my goodness. That was terribly misread. I apologize. But it is important to create goals, but it takes discipline to continue them, both mentally and spiritually, Discipline is something that I think I've talked about, and if not, then I'll talk about it now. Something that is very hard to keep up if you don't have, the mental fortitude for it. Take a child, for example. A child is told, there's a cookie jar on this shelf, and a child is told that they will not receive, or they should not receive the cookies. They should not go grab them. They should not look at them. They should not touch them. They should not eat at the cookie jar unless, the parent gives them the cookie, right? And the kid, for a while, he's like, okay, I don't need the cookie. They go about playing with their toys and going outside, blah, blah, blah. But then they come back in one day, they're famished, they're hungry, and they turn around and look at that cookie jar on the shelf. And all of a sudden, that cookie jar looks really good right about now. Those cookies in there, man, I forgot all about them. All of a sudden, they're starting to speak to me. They're about to say, come here and open this jar. And all of a sudden, the discipline that child had goes away in about 2 seconds because now, that's not every case. Some children are disciplined well, and some children aren't disciplined well, but they're disciplined. And they may not take the jar, but a lot of children would. I know for a fact if I was a child, I would take a cookie out of that jar and completely walk away, none the wiser. But anyway, as you get older, you're not that same child anymore. You're a little bit more mature, a little bit wiser. And with maturity and wisdom comes discipline, You become more responsible with what you're given. And so, in the same sense, when you have a goal, when you need to reach a goal, when you need to meet expectations, whether it be God's expectations or simply the expectations of your boss, you have to have responsibility and discipline in order to accomplish that goal. Now, in the perspective of a resolution and a goal, without discipline, obviously, that is not going to happen. But without God, it's much easier to give into temptation to not be disciplined, right? Luke 18, verses 1 through 5. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up, be disciplined about prayer. He said, in a certain town, there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me. Now, the reasoning behind that statement is a little questionable. I don't think the goal should be that the woman doesn't attack him, but the point being, the woman came to him every day and pleaded, please take me out of enemy territory, please save me, plead with someone every day. She was persistent, she didn't give up, and eventually, the ruler, out of fear for his life, or whatever reason it was, he just eventually gave in. He was like, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to save her, rescue her, help her out. And so, whenever we're persistent about something, if we have the discipline to keep going about it every day and every night, eventually something will change. And God even says it here, eventually something will change. In this parable, something changed. In life, something will change because God is always looking out for us and always working in the shadows, even if we can't see it. Another section of verses, one of my favorite sections of verses of all time, 1 Corinthians 9, verses 24 through 27. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadowboxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. And the point I wrote down with that is take on this journey with intent, right? If you intend to go about something, if you really strive for it, and your goal is to accomplish that, you will take steps to achieve that, right? If I want to be the best 100-meter sprinter in the world, I'm going to do the training to, like this verse was saying, I'm going to do the training that athletes usually do. I'm going to do the plyometrics. I'm going to start running longer distances so shorter distances will be easier on me. I'm going to start eating healthier. I'm going to start lifting weights. I'm going to start building muscle and building that endurance so that when that 100-meter race comes, I'll be able to use what I've practiced and I'll be able to, see the results of my labor. In the sense of resolutions, if then we are building our foundation on God and we understand that any goal we create is for the purpose of giving God the glory, we will then take steps to accomplish that resolution to give God glory, not to accomplish that resolution and then now what? What do we do after that? No. We accomplish that resolution, give God the glory, and then continue on giving God glory in other methods, ways, shapes, and forms. Another reason that some people sometimes feel lost after they accomplish the goal is because they center their whole life around it, right? If we center our entire life around being the best person we can be, or being the best runner you can be, once you realize that you can not do that, or once you realize that you already have done that, because no one's going to be the best. There's always someone better than you out there. That mindset, I know people have heard that all the time, but it is true. There's always someone better. There will be someone that you've never heard of that will be a faster runner than you because of, I don't know, the way they grew up. It's some random reason like that. But anyway, if you then realize that you cannot be the best or that you are the best, all of a sudden that goal is just gone. Everything you've centered your life around is just now void. And you can get the satisfaction from that. You can be like, oh yeah, I'm the best runner. Eventually someone will take that from you, right? And then what do you have? Everything you centered your life around is now just nothing. It's gone. Reduced to atoms. And you can say, and then you'll be living in the past, like I was mentioning earlier. Oh, you remember that time I was the best runner in the world? Man, that was a good couple months. That was the peak of my life right there. And then you have nothing else to live for, essentially, because you already accomplished that one goal. But if your goal is to constantly give God glory, you'll find other things to do after that. I glorified the Lord with my running ability and using it to the best of my ability, Now I'm going to go do whatever I do best outside of that, but also to give God glory, Live every day, help somebody out, be a servant, be a leader. That's kind of the thing that would help discipline you towards always persisting towards the Lord, Helping discipline you towards your goals. If you're not going to do it for the Lord, then you're going to do it for somebody else. And usually If that other motivation leaves, discipline also leaves, and you just give up. But God's never going to leave, like I was saying. God doesn't change. So all the reasons and motivation and discipline that you need, it's all right there. In that book, the Bible, as well as in your prayer, as well as in church, as well as in community. Wherever you find the Lord is where your motivation is. And as long as you keep that motivation with you, as long as you still continue to develop your relationship with the Lord, that discipline, that drive to discipline yourself and accomplish your goals will always be there. And God will always help you achieve them because it's in alignment with His plans, which is to give Himself the glory. Call Him a selfish God if you will. He is a just God and He is a selfish God. But His selfishness is different from ours. Also something for another day. Another thing, if you do fall down, don't give up because you missed one day. As I was saying, sometimes when your motivation leaves, when your discipline sometimes wanes, I should say, you then get a little bit upset. You fell off one day, and you don't really know how to get back on because you feel like you failed. I've been there. I've done that. I remember I was trying to swim. What was I? I was swimming. So I was swimming for many, many years. But I think I started locking in for swimming in 2021 when I joined a different club. And so 2022 rolled around. I then came up with the goal that I was going to get a state. I was going to become a state swimmer for the 50 freestyle. And I centered my entire summer around that goal. I was lifting, I was going to swim practice, taking everything seriously, eating good food, blah, blah, blah. That school year, 2022 to 2023, I was also taking it seriously, trying to go to bed on time, not doing homework too late, not trying to stay up too late. And I think in 2023, February, I had the opportunity of going to sectionals for Illinois High School State Association. And so I went as an individual for my school, and I swam that 50 freestyle. And my performance was worse than the meet I had swam the weekend or the 2 weekends prior. And in my mind, I was just like, wow, that is a complete, utter disappointment. I laughed it off, yeah, but in the back of my head, I was like, wow, that is actually really disappointing because I wanted so badly to do well at this one point. And granted, there were other points down the line that I could still perform well. But to believe yourself to do well at that point, to believe you have the ability, and then all of a sudden you backpedal, it's motivation is so tempting to just walk out the door. And it's like, yeah, if I only focus on that feeling, if I only focus on the motivation of seeing the results, of doing well, of seeing my fruit, the satisfaction of seeing my work, seeing the fruits of my labor, then if that's not there, all of a sudden my motivation's gone and my discipline's gone, and I'm just gonna stop doing whatever I wanted to do. And for a couple of days, I felt a little bit unmotivated. I was like, I don't really want to go back to swimming, blah blah blah. But then something snapped me out of it. I was like, I gotta lock in. I got more opportunities, and so I grinded even more. And I didn't make state. I did not. But I got pretty close, and I was pretty happy with that because at the end of the summer, I was more in tune with God, and I realized that whether or not I accomplished state, I still gave Him the glory and all that I was doing. And I think that overall, it was a good time. I got to bond with the coaches, bond with my friends on the team, and it was nice. But anyway, all that to say, if you focus on something superficial and temporary, like the fruits of my labor, as a motivation, then it's going to be easy to fall down. But just because you fall down doesn't mean you have to give up. And if you flip your perspective, change your mindset a little bit, and focus on what God's calling you to do, realize that you're not a failure in God's eyes, realize that you can do things in God's eyes as long as you're putting Him first, giving Him the glory and developing that relationship, then all of a sudden it's much harder to give up. Proverbs 24:16, for a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in times of calamity. Wicked people are going to be like, I'm going to do this one thing, and if I don't get it, I quit. I've heard that statement. I've said that statement so many times. If I don't do this, I'm quitting. If I don't do this, I'm going to leave. If I don't do this, I'm going to get off. If I don't hit this clip in Rocket League, I'm going to get off the game. I've said that so many times, and this verse literally says, the wicked stumble in times of calamity. If you're doing it for yourself, pride, that's the trait of a wicked person, right? If I'm trying to give myself glory, if I'm trying to put myself on that pedestal and say I'm the greatest player of all time, if I fumble, it's much easier to just give up, to stumble and fall and be like, what was me? Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. That was like my one life purpose. I can't. But if then you're trying to be righteous, trying to be in line with God, trying to be in line with his morals, when you fall down, all of a sudden it's going to be like, wow, I fell down, but God's given me strength. I'm going to get back up and keep going because I've seen the fruits of his labor in my life. And I was just talking about fruits of labor for our lives, but seeing the fruits of labor of God's work should be more motivation to pursue him. You can still see fruits of labor of your own work, but that shouldn't be what you're shooting for. You should be shooting for your relationship and connection with God, giving him glory, rather than shooting for your own fruits, the fruits of your own labor, and tooting your own horn, if that makes sense. Another verse is James 1, verses 2 through 4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let the perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. So persevere with the goal that God has given you, not the goal that man has created. A very, very perfect example of this is money. The goal that man has created is to be the richest person on the planet. And now I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but that is the literal goal that man has created. To be so wealthy that you can just live comfortably and not have to lift a finger, and you'll just be blowing your nose with money because you have so much of it. That's one of the goals that man has created. Another goal is to have a nice family, live in a nice house, have pets, the American dream. That's a goal. But a goal that God has is not the American dream. It's not, rather, it's the American dream, but from a different perspective. It's the American dream not centered on the fact that it's an American dream, but it's a God-given dream, right? If I'm given this life, I'm going to use it to the best of my ability to glorify God. I'm not going to squander it. I'm not going to keep it all to myself. I'm not going to be selfish and say, I need to make as much money as possible so I can accomplish this American dream. No, I'm going to be as generous as I humanly can. I'm going to be as kind to the people as I humanly can, because that's what God would do. And that glorifies him. And that shows others his character through me. And that's the dream we should be living for. That's the kind of American dream that we all should embody. Isn't literally on our money is printed, in God we trust. Our country is so centered around God, and yet the American dream, nothing in it. I'll literally look it up right now. Nothing in the American dream says anything about God, bruh. American dream. The American dream is a phrase referring to the purported national ethos of the United States, that every person has the freedom and opportunity to succeed and attain a better life. Interesting. Well, still, no mention of God. Every American person has the freedom and opportunity to succeed and attain a better life. That is very true. But if you do that for the sole purpose of attaining a better life on this world, then it's not really going to amount to much, you know what I mean? And I say all this with a grain of salt. I don't mean to invalidate anyone's position, right? I need to change this back. I don't mean to invalidate anyone's situation. I don't mean to say that people shouldn't try to make a better life for themselves on this earth. But that can't be the end goal. That can't be it. I can't make it to point A on the map. God's at point B, and I just stop at point A because that's all I'm looking at. I have to make it to point A for the purpose of getting to point B. I have to make it to point A because point B is so much greater in comparison that I need to go through point A in order to reach point B, right? I need to go through making all this money so I can glorify God. I need to go to getting this job so I can glorify God. I need to go through this suffering so I can glorify God. I need to go through this college experience so I can glorify God. All of these paths that I have to get through to accomplish my true goal of getting to God. And that's what these resolutions should be, right? A resolution should be a point on the map leading you to the ultimate destination. You know how GPS is like, turn right at blank street or turn left at blank street, and then for 5.9 miles drive on the road and then turn left at blah, blah, blah. All those turn lefts and turn rights and make a U-turn and blah, blah, blah. All of that is the points, the resolutions, and the goals that we need to make in our life. But the ultimate purpose is to get to that destination at the end. That is the glory of God, right? We're trying to get our lives to the point where we're glorifying God. In order to do that, we can reach these goals, we can reach these aspirations, we can achieve them, but for the ultimate purpose of getting to that final destination. Not a reference to those terrible movies where everybody dies. But in the same sense, if I'm looking at a resolution, new year, new me, I'm going to work out straight for a year. That is a step on the path of glorifying God. I can't forget that. If I limit my vision just to that one turn, I'm not going to see what's going on in front of me. I'm not going to see what's going on past that point. If I'm only trying to get to the turn, I make that turn, all of a sudden it's a dead end. I'm going to be like, okay. Because I forgot about the ultimate destination. If I realize it's a dead end and I remember the ultimate destination, I'm going to be like, hey, this isn't right. I need to keep going. And so I back up, go down the street again, and find another turn that leads me to that ultimate destination. And that's how it should be. God has to direct us to that ultimate destination. God's our ultimate GPS in a sense. He'll direct us to points in our life that we need to get to, right? If he gives me the ability, say he gives me a car that really goes really fast, and I become a racer and I'm really good at driving, right? I have to drive. I'm going to drive and be a good racer and try to be the best in the world. But because God gave me that ability, I'm trying to give back to God by doing the most that I can on this road, right? I'm not going to try and do the best I can just for the sake of doing the best, to make myself puffed up and really look like the big guy on campus because I have a cool car and I can drive fast, I'm the best driver, blah, blah, blah. All that ability is not mine, like I was saying earlier. All that ability is not your own. So if you're trying to access those goals, access those resolutions without putting God first, it's like driving without a real destination. You'll keep making turns, you'll keep making lefts and rights and taking exits and going on highways to nowhere. Because you have no ultimate goal. There's no ultimate fulfilling foundational purpose. There is purpose for the immediate moment. There is purpose for the immediate life. But spiritually, eternally, there's nothing there. There's nothing substantiating at the end of that. And I think that's something that everybody that makes resolutions needs to get in their head, because they think that making this resolution will magically turn their life around and they'll have discipline and motivation and that's all they need to accomplish. Well, I know it's not all they need to accomplish. They just make that for like one goal while they have other goals that they achieve as well. But even then, that one goal, maybe make that one goal to grow closer to God. Maybe make that one goal to glorify him with one action this year. It may just be as simple as that. One simpler action that you attribute to the glory of God. That alone can set you up to go down that right path to the ultimate destination more than any other resolution ever could. And that's because you're giving God the glory. You're using your life for the intended purpose of giving back to him. You're using what he's given you and giving it right back to him as it should be. And I think that's something that's really important. Another thing, rejecting God's plan equals kind of rejecting your steps. Like I was saying before, God directing you to the ultimate destination. If you reject that ultimate destination, you're kind of rejecting your own resolution in a sense. The steps, the fruition of all your steps. You're making all these turns and going all these directions to where? To what? It's nothing. It's not fulfillment. You're not going to feel fulfilled because you're going to keep going around in circles thinking that the destination is at one of these turns when ultimately it's down the road this direction and you're all the way over here. It doesn't make any sense. So you can't reject God's plan and then expect to find satisfaction and fruits of your labor, because God's plan gives you the most satisfaction. That's what he wants for us. He wants the best for us because he loves us and cares for us. So if we reject that plan, we're rejecting our best life in a sense. I'm not saying that God has you locked into a storybook where you need to follow his exact details word for word, bar for bar, and if you deviate from that, then you're just going to suffer. You can follow God's life plan and still suffer. You can follow God's life plan and not suffer. Depends on what he has for you. But I'm saying that following God's plan is the best path for you. It's the best way. He wants the best for you, right? So he's going to create a path that may not immediately be good, but ultimately the destination is the best. And so it may not look good right now. It may not look good in a year. It may not look good after those resolutions fall through. But ultimately, further down the line, God's working things that you can't see yet. So that's why you got to keep going. That's why you need that discipline, that motivation, that drive, because God's always working and he's always the same. Galatians 5:17 says, "For the flesh lusts against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. But if you are led by the Spirit, you're not under the law." And Romans 7:15-18 says, "I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do I do not do, but what I hate to do, but what I hate, I do. Ooh, my mouse is lagging. Oh my goodness, please. Okay. I do what I do not want to do. I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. We cannot do good by God's standards without living in the Spirit, so God must remain within our goals. And that leads me to my last point of centering your goals around Christ. It's as simple as that. You can have a resolution. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I personally don't make them because I don't need to. Making something new for every single year doesn't really make sense to me, and if the whole goal of life is the same. But making a resolution is perfectly fine. But centering that goal around Christ is what's important. Centering that goal around the creator of the universe is what's important. Because we can keep living on our own. We can keep living for ourselves the entire time. And that's fine and dandy, but ultimately there is someone that we should be giving back to. There's someone that we should be attributing our life to. There's someone that has given us this opportunity to be as good as we can be, to be the best soccer player, to be the best piano player, to be the most empathetic person on the planet, or to be the most talented psychological student the world has ever seen. Who knows? But God's given us all that. The least we can do with our plans is to give it back to him in the end goal. Sure, you can pursue your wildest dreams and aspirations, but if you're not giving that glory back to God, if you're not on the big screen TV, on the Jumbotron at a football game asked, so, how'd you do it? How'd you become the best football player this world has ever seen? And if your first thought is not, God has just given me so much talent, so much ability, and I'm just so thankful that I got to work with it and use it for his glory, right? I've been practicing and training for as long as I can remember, but it's really to him I owe this glory, right? Like without him, I can do nothing. Something like to that effect. Now, I'm not guilt tripping you into it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine by me. But I'm saying, if a guy walks up to me in the desert, gives me a cup of water, and I start my own business with it, sell water to people in the desert, and make money to get out of the desert, I think I'm going to attribute my success to the guy who gave me the water, and not to my own random ability to find water, which didn't happen. That was a terribly stupid analogy, but I hope you get my point. Anyway, that was it. That's all I have. Hopefully you guys' New Year's resolutions are very interesting and cool and wonderful. And if you don't have any, that's fine too. But make sure that God ultimately is the goal that you're striving for and is your, not New Year resolution, but new life resolution. That's a bar. Okay, I'm done. Anyway, see you guys next week. I don't know what I'm going to do, but have a great day. Stay blessed. And yeah, bye. I swear I talk too fast. I'm like, so, like, how do I can't slow down and be like, I can't do it. I don't know.